Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to live your life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Well, there is no time to waste, my friends. Welcome to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. You know, I was actually wrestling with a topic for this program, and just a simple trip to the gas station early this morning provided me with the appropriate topic for today's program. Sometimes we just have to relax and trust and allow things to come to us in this way. So today we're going to have a bit of a sobering, mature discussion, and this is why I am known for practical spirituality as opposed to all of the foofy fantasy silliness that is commonly associated with spirituality here in the West. So I would like to ask you, if you have missed the greatest spiritual opportunity of our lifetime. And while you ponder that question, I'd like to share two things that stood out in my early morning gas station experience. As I pulled into a local neighborhood gas station, there's another gas station across the street, and as I got out and began pumping my gas, there was screeching and screaming and just an utter fit being thrown by a woman at the other gas station. And I don't know the circumstances, and I don't really care because I don't like to get involved in drama. But you couldn't help but hear, her voice was just piercing everywhere. And she's screaming at this person. I don't know if it was a mask issue or what it was, but it was a completely irrational, out of control outburst. And it's very interesting because it went on and on for several minutes, most of the time while I was pumping gas. It just didn't stop. And so I finished pumping the gas, got back in my car, and drove home. As I was driving up our street, there was garbage guys collecting trash this morning, and they had parked right in the middle of the road, and the road is very narrow, so I don't blame them at all for that. They don't have much room to navigate the road as you come up onto the mountain. And they were very nice. I just sat there for a minute, and they motioned to me that they were going to finish dumping, that trash receptacle, and then they were going to move it. So they did, and they moved along, and I put on my blinkers so they knew which side road I was going to turn on, and they nicely pulled over to the side a little bit and let me around them. And as I started to go around them, the guy on the back of the truck jumped off the truck, and he ran right in front of my car. Luckily, I was going uphill, and we have good brakes. If either one of those things were not in place this morning, things could have taken a bit of an unfortunate turn. So what I noticed is this guy knew that I was behind him and that they were moving for me, but in the short time it took them to move the truck, you could tell that as soon as the truck stopped, the guy did what he does over and over again every day. He jumps off the truck, runs across the street to get the receptacle. And after this act is repetitive for so long, it becomes a mindless act. And you could tell that he was actually so stuck in his head so quickly that he was completely unaware of anything around him, and he was just in autopilot. It was as though he wasn't aware of anything or anyone around him. His body was physically, mechanically on autopilot, just going through the motions of what it was set to do, while his mind was stuck in his own head. And this isn't a criticism of this person. It is a sign of the times. And when I slammed on the brakes of the car, it woke him a bit. He was startled and he jumped as if he didn't even realize the car was there. And he had been on the back of the truck looking directly at me the entire time they were moving it. And the situation ended just fine. He waved me on and I waved to him and kind of got out of their way and let them do their job. So what do these two incidents have to do with spirituality? Well, let's go back to my question. Did you miss the greatest spiritual opportunity of our lifetime, of your lifetime? And how would you even know? Now, what I'm about to share with you is not meant to be a negative interpretation of things. It's just the truth of where we're at and what's going on. And if we understand this, then we may be able to help ourselves. So I have been yelling from the rooftops and mountaintops and anything I could climb on to try to alert people for far more than 10 years, telling people that if they want to begin the awakening process and embrace their spiritual expansion, they'd better not wait any longer. I talked quite a while ago about the tipping point. Well, we're far past the tipping point. I talked a while ago about this window of opportunity beginning to close. Well, it's closing now. I expressed the fact that these opportunities do not last forever. This window of opportunity isn't going to stay open for very long. They never do. I went on to warn that this opportunity was coming to an end, and afterwards it would be far, far more challenging to succeed in your spiritual expansion. Well, this window is nearly closed. If we look at the time frame of this virus, this pandemic, we can see that we were given one final opportunity to engage in the practices of authentic spiritual processes. The problem, however, is this. During the time of the virus, many people are either too consumed with fear or too mentally lazy, completely absorbed in watching things like Netflix all day to have the ability to focus on the practices. So I have to ask, did you heed my warning? Did you begin to engage in the authentic mindfulness practices? What about the meditative practices and meditation itself that I've been sharing for several years now? This is episode 290, and I've been stressing this for years before I even started this podcast. It is my sincerest hope that you paid attention, that you listened, and that you began to engage in these practices. You see, we had a moment in time when our basic needs, for the most of us, were met, and we were able to focus our mental efforts on the very thing that human beings are supposed to focus on during such times, that of our spiritual expansion. Most of us felt safe and secure. We had food, water, clothing, shelter, warmth, and people to care for us. Those things collectively make up the first three levels of the hierarchy of needs. We also had the opportunity to create careers, get an education, and even open our own business if we desired. We had the ability to do our best to create things and accomplish things that made a real difference in the world. This is the fourth level of the hierarchy of needs. We even had free time. As busy as we liked to tell ourselves we were, a lot of us still had some free time. We certainly had enough time for an hour of meditation every day. There was absolutely no excuse for any of us not to reach the 5th level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that of spiritual and creative endeavors. This is the natural evolution of a human being. But these opportunities are not available to us throughout our entire lifetime. They're not there forever. These windows open and close within each generation, sometimes even skipping generations. And as this window of opportunity comes to a close, I can only trust that you heeded my warning and took advantage of the opportunity before you and engaged in the practices that would not only assist your spiritual expansion, but allow you to live a fully engaged life, no matter what was going on around you. At this time, when we see a lot of our rights and freedoms being taken away, whether you believe that's a good thing or not, it does now appear that the mentality of humanity is now in a state of decline as we head towards the 6th mass extinction. And this makes it increasingly difficult to engage in and succeed in the practices of spiritual expansion. We've reached a point where life was so easy and so decadent here in the U.S. that people became physically and mentally lazy, dependent upon the government for entitlement handouts. Many became physically obese from mindless overeating and eating processed garbage. Others became mentally obese from endless entertainment, endlessly watching propaganda programs, accepting the most empty and ignorant things for entertainment because their mind was so bored. When our children have nothing better to do with the youth of their lives than to sit and watch other kids play with toys and do things on YouTube instead of playing with those toys and doing those things for themselves, we have a problem. When adults would rather sit and watch other adults get some sort of package in the mail, some item, and watch them unbox it as they describe each piece to them and everything that's going on, instead of actually getting something for themselves, there's a problem. When we are mindlessly addicted to the programming and propaganda and have no clue what it's doing to us, when we are so addicted to scrolling on our phones with worthless social media, we have a problem. And when society reaches such a point where they are craving something to be entertained because they're not doing anything with their mind is not challenged. They don't have to do anything to survive. They don't have to fear. They don't have to work hard. They don't have to do much of anything. It turns to empty, meaningless things to occupy itself. And it is at this point that we have to be very careful, because there's a choice to make. We can either occupy our mind through mindfulness practices and meditation, or we can allow it to succumb to the empty ignorance that we see on these screens. If we engage in meditation, we can attain wisdom. If we sit and stare at these screens, we will attain ignorance, as they are meant to actively dumb us down. You see, if we're not occupying the mind with something beneficial, such as our spiritual expansion, then it will fixate on meaningless wastes of time like entertainment. And it is then that it will even begin to focus and fixate on absurdities, like believing there are hundreds of genders when we clearly know that everything in science and reality shows there are but two. And look how easily people are offended, right? Everybody is offended over something, and they're all looking so hard for something to twist so they can believe they are offended by it. See, the mind is craving something, and it will either take you towards insanity or it will take you towards the salvation of wisdom. It's up to us to wield the power of our mind responsibly, because we are at the point where people are retreating into their own minds, becoming stuck in their head. And this is when people lose their minds. Although I think a more proper description would be that they are lost in their own mind. They become so absorbed in their mind and lost within their own mind. And when this happens, the ego continues to inflate. And eventually, the result is that the mind breaks. And the result of that break is that these people live in a constant state of fear, where their ego is threatened by everything and everyone. How do we know this? This is how and why these people are so easily and desperately offended. They need to be offended because it validates the ego and it allows the ego to grow. It feeds their ego. And then in turn, that ego continues to inflate. And as the ego inflates, you become more fearful. And this creates a very vicious cycle. The unfortunate end result of this is mental instability and even outright insanity. And you know what I'm talking about? It's all around us today. Just look at all the people having meltdowns. The degree of blatant corruption and crime and violence. So I have to ask, did you take heed? Have you been engaging in the practices that I've been sharing that will help you to protect your mind against this sort of thing? If you haven't been engaging in spiritual practices and meditation as though your very life depended on it, you should have been. When we live in fear, it causes us to be in a state of contraction. And this is when we retreat into the mind. Even disconnecting from the physical body, going totally into the mind. This is contraction. This is very low vibration, and this is a huge problem. We need to continue expanding, and that we have the courage to live without being in a state of fear. Open your eyes. Take an objective look at yourself. Pay attention to whether or not you are more fearful than you were before this virus came. Look around you and see how many more people are actually living in fear because of this. And then I would encourage you to look at some truthful, factual information and numbers. And then you can judge for yourself as to whether or not fear is justified in this instance. I choose not to live in fear. So, what's the deal with the experience that I had this morning? Well, it is this. When we have these meltdowns and public outbursts and the inability to cope with a reality that is other than what we think or believe it should be, this is a type of mental instability and even insanity that can be avoided through meditation. It has been my experience thus far that anyone I know who seriously meditates, not the foofy meditation, not any of that silliness, but engages in real meditation, they're not having this sort of mental break. They're not having these problems. Their sanity seems to be intact. They seem to be able to cope with this stuff just fine. That's part of my point. If you have been meditating, you are protecting your mind. You are protecting yourself from this sort of thing happening to you. Those who are not may be facing some degree of mental decline. And then we have the other issue of the sanitary engineer in our area. And I have to say, our garbage guys do a great job. They're very nice guys. They got a hard job. So I give them a lot of credit. But again, he's just an example of how many, many people are living in a state of autopilot. That's what it is to be mindless. So if you've been engaging in authentic mindfulness practices, this isn't happening to you. You're not living this way. See, when you're in autopilot, you are in the ultimate form of merely existing. You are not living. You are not connected to the present moment whatsoever. You are not connected to your life whatsoever. You are stuck in your head. And that's why you are on autopilot. The students and clients who I have been teaching mindfulness practices to, authentic mindfulness practices and meditation, are not having these issues. So here we can see two very obvious examples from one seemingly simple trip to a gas station, how mindfulness allows us to escape living an existence, a life while we're on autopilot. And we see how meditation can help maintain our mental stability, even in the most bizarre of times. And while many other spiritual and meditation teachers are beginning to give up, they're saying it's past time, people miss the window. If they haven't been doing it by now, then it's simply too late for them. I choose not to give up. I will not give up on any of you. I will keep fighting for you. And while, yes, it's true, you needed to have been working on these things seriously, not sporadically, long before now. But I trust that if you are seriously engaging in them right now, starting right now, then possibly you have the ability to protect yourself. You have the ability to still engage in your spiritual expansion to whatever degree you are capable. There is no doubt that the world is in chaos right now, especially here in the United States. And this is unlikely to change anytime soon. But that doesn't mean you can't still live a fully engaged life. Allow me to share something with you. When my wife and I come together and we are both of high vibration, open heart, and filled with appreciation, there's a magic in the air that we experience it. And we both experience it. It's palpable. And we both feel it. We both know that's when we're in the flow. We're at one with the energy. We got the frequency. Our frequencies are tied in together, and we got the frequency of the universe around us, and we're going with the flow, and life is magical. Magical. We used to live in that flow every moment of every day. And while these times have made that a bit more challenging, I can tell you, we still experience it. We can still go into that flow, into that vibrational frequency, and enjoy the magic, regardless of what is going on around us. We have been able to do that. See, it's the power of us, ourselves. Instead of allowing all of the external circumstances to negatively impact us, to shut down our heart, to lower our vibration, to take away our sense of appreciation for others, for life, for everything. And I refer to it as magic because I don't know what else to call it, but I will tell you it is the best feeling in the world. It is incredible. There's a state of total relaxation. You're filled with love and appreciation. Your vibration is soaring. And It is the greatest feeling a human being can have, in my humble opinion. And I would so like you to experience this. And that is why I continue to do what I do. And I will continue to encourage you. I can't do it for you. I wish I could. If I could, I would. But I can't. All I can do is encourage you and give you the tools, the best tools that I've found in 40 years of working with these type of practices. That's all I can give you. And I truly wish it could be so much more. But this is the nature of free will. Each of us has the ability to choose whether we live a fully engaged life, live in this magic, and live with spiritual expansion through engaging all of these practices, or whether we're too lazy to invest the effort into our awakening and the ability to live our best life experience. So I encourage you, be creative. Find ways to continue to live and enjoy your life. Sure, if you are at risk for this virus or any other virus for that matter, then take precautions or do what fits you. But if you're healthy, then take whatever precautions, if any, that you feel are necessary and just, but don't give in to the fear and cower in your home. Get out and enjoy life. Get out and live. Find something. Find a place to go on vacation. There are still many, many things that are not shut down. There are things you can do to have an adventure. And I don't know about you, but for me, sitting on my butt in the house, well, people feed me information that makes no sense, trying to instill fear, is not an adventure for me. That's not the adventure I choose to live in life. And it doesn't take much to feel how that sort of existence causes contraction instead of expansion. And my friends, we were born for expansion. It is our very nature, and it is our birthright. And we were even given the ability to choose whether or not to engage it. So we have to choose wisely. I have been doing everything possible in an attempt to share appreciation and joy, laughter, to try to raise their vibration. You see, I refuse to spread fear to others. And I really can't spread any fear or share any fear with anyone because I don't have any fear. Whether I like what's going on or not, I have no fear of it. And I would encourage all of you to try to do the same. Try to share some love and appreciation, some joy, some laughter, a smile with others around you. That's what the world needs right now. And here I am, one last time, pleading once again with all of you. Engage the practices. Embrace the mindfulness practices, meditative practices, and meditation itself, and take it all very seriously. And then maybe, just maybe, there's still time for you to experience living a fully engaged life. Please remember to visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. You can grab an autographed copy of my book, Expansion Mastery, there. Check that out. It's got a bunch of fantastic practices in it that will help you greatly right now. Of course, there's an ebook and all kinds of other goodies and more goodies to come on the site. So please give that a visit and subscribe to my channels and all the social media stuff and hit all of the buttons on there that mean something these days. And do your best to share this podcast with other people. That's the most important thing we can do, is share this with others. And this will allow us to get it around all of the social media shadow banning and other forms of suppression and censorship that we are experiencing. I rely on you, and together we can make a difference. We can help one another and others. Until next time, my friends, I wish you the very best in your practices and your life. Take care.